realised, right, the stations are playing our songs, we're getting booked for lots of things. When did you start to notice all the politics and the maybe not so?
I mean, the politics have been there from day one. Like it's a constant fight, and I think accepting that it's always going to be a fight is part of the journey as well. You don't suddenly wake up and go, right, the fight is done. Like even to this day, to this very moment now, at 36, putting a record out on my own independent label, I'm still fighting. I'm still trying to break down barriers. I'm still trying to make my mark, you know, as an artist or whatever I'm trying to do. So it doesn't end, but it's what you realise is that that's part of the journey. That is part of it. It comes with the territory. And we are in the business of music. Yeah. So it's just striking that balance between being a smart business person and being a creative. And when you're a creative person, it's that push and pull. It's quite difficult. Yeah.
So in the band, were there ever any bust-ups? Because you know,
yeah. Not like fights.
Good friends.
Not physical fights. No. Probably offered it. We probably got
offered it out.
Probably, maybe once or twice. But it's the only way I can describe being in a band. It's like being on the road with your siblings, who you love, but you want to. Right? Yeah. You love your siblings. You fight for them. You die for them. But they get on your nerves. So that is exactly the same dynamic, except you don't actually get a break.
Did it ever?
Because we were together every single day for, oh my God, nearly 8 years.
So did it ever get to a point where you wanted to, say, that's it, I'm going, before you actually split?
Yeah. I remember being in America and calling up my mum, going, I need to come home. I've had enough, I'm done. And when I look back, I can't even remember why or what it was. I can't remember what the argument was about. Why I was frustrated. I don't know what it was, but it's just little things that niggle. And so there have been those moments. But one thing I say about the girls, what I loved about our dynamic, the respect that we had and the way we were so professional. Like we would never air dirty laundry. We would always be united front. So even if one of us was annoying the other one, we would still be solid together. And that's why we've still got a friendship to this day. Once the band ended and I was approached by a label to do an album, of course I was totally up for it. And so I spent 1.5 years making a record called Fired Up. I signed to Polydor Records, a guy called Colin Barlow, who I respect a lot. And he basically let me experiment and make the kind of album that I wanted to make. I was trying to find who I was as an artist. People obviously knew me as the MC of Mystique, and so this was an opportunity for me to sing and write the songs and make it a more personal record. And then they freaking dropped me.
I know, how did, I was going to come on to that, because you had written a lot of the tracks on that album, didn't you? So how did it feel when you were dropped? Obviously devastating, but I mean, how did you take it very personally?
Well, yeah, because I spent 1.5 years making this record, and then there's this big build-up, and then there's the pressure kicks in now, because you've stepped out of a successful girl group and you're going alone. And the odds are generally stacked against you, right? So I released the first single, and in hindsight, it wasn't the right single for me. And again, I don't look back with regret, because I think everything I've done, even if it's successful or not, I've still learned something. Because every situation that happens to us in life is there to teach us something about ourselves. So if you look at every problem or dilemma with a different viewpoint, like, oh, what's this trying to show me? And then you can accept it. And so no regrets, but I think Lipstick, which was the track that I released first, was so different to anything I'd done in Mystique. You know, I think the song went in at like number 14, which it's not terrible, but when you've signed a major deal to a major label, then the expectation is higher because there's so much emphasis on chart positions. So they then decided not to put out the album. They gave me the album back, and it wasn't all doom and gloom. My manager that I'm with now, we actually licensed that record out in Japan, and it actually had some success in Asia. So that wasn't the end of the world. But at the time when I lost the deal, that's probably when I suffered my first kind of real low moment in the industry, because toppled with losing the deal, I split up with my partner at the time, and it all sort of happened within 2 weeks. It was like the universe was having a clear out. And I can look back at that and smile now, because actually, once again, something that was horrific at the time has been the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Your new single that's out at the moment, did you write that about you and how you're feeling at this moment in time? It's
about
very much
me, about you, about you, about you, about everyone. That song, I mean, it's all happy-go-lucky, but the lyrics genuinely are about people. And there's one line I say, I'm looking at a wall like a prisoner in chains, because actually so many people want to put you into a box. So many people want to stereotype you, judge you, try and write the rules for you. No, you can write your own rules. And that's what I say in the second verse, like you're trying to write a script for me that's made for someone else, or you're throwing me in an ocean that I know I don't belong. It's about freedom. It's about people being allowed to express themselves how they choose without the worries and concerns of other people judging them. And I think so many people go through life trying to conform.
And have you felt like that? Have you felt like someone's tried to put you into
Of
a
course.
position where you've not wanted to?
Of course. People always want to put you in a box and try and decide who you are for you. Of course, that's natural. That comes with this business. That just comes with school, college, uni, life, any working environment. And actually, I think it's good to go against the grain. And in that song, I also talk about how the fact that I say, we are the miracle, we're the lightning bolt, just love us all the way we are. Because actually, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you. Like, you can be perfectly imperfect, and that's all good too.
My auntie literally became obsessed with you in that series.
Really?
Literally. She used to call me and be like, do you know her? There's this lady on the TV that's doing really well with Strictly. She was absolutely obsessed with you. And I think that really made everyone fall in love with you who didn't know you for your music at that time as well. So but then after winning, they obviously invited you to be a judge.
Yeah.
And you were there for 3 years. But then you made the move over to Britain's Got Talent. What made you think that that was the right time? Because obviously they Strictly absolutely loved you. So did the audiences, didn't they?
Well, firstly, Strictly was a big sort of turning point in my life. The night that I won, I actually felt like I'd taken the power back. I felt like I'd empowered myself again. And then when I joined the show, obviously, it was a bit of controversy. And the newspapers completely turned on me, and I was called every name under the sun. I even tried to sue a journalist for calling me a chocolate Labrador, who I felt like she was being slightly racist. And I felt like, being female and being of colour, I was an easy target, and actually quite disgusted at the way older female journalists had treated me at that time. So I'm very pleased that, looking back, that situation diffused itself quite quickly, and then I went on to have 3 successful years on the show, and the executive producer at the show at the time also said to me how proud she was to have a woman of colour on her panel, because it hadn't really been seen at that point, and I was very conscious of that position, and that show did amazing things for me. But I didn't want to be sort of put into a box, and I think, you know, I'm the sort of person, like, just when people think they've got you figured out, try something new. And after 3 years on the show, I felt like that was a respectable amount of time to be there, and I had the itch to try something new. And genuinely, I wasn't approached by Britain's Got Talent whilst I was still on that show. I left the show, but I did have a friend that worked over at Psycho and had said they were looking for someone else. Would I be interested in joining the Britain's Got Talent panel? And at that, it was an honour to be asked. It was a no-brainer, because it was for me, it was a more relaxed show that could enable me to just be myself a little bit more. And I genuinely loved doing the show. Like, I wasn't sure at first. When I first joined, I was nervous. I wasn't sure, because I'm sitting there genuinely fighting for talent, and genuinely there because I love to support talent. And I realised quickly that the world of TV is a game as well. So it's striking that balance between doing something, like I said before, because you genuinely believe in it and you want to make a difference, and then also realising the industry you're in and that there's a balance to be had. So yeah, Britain's Got Talent is like the biggest show on telly, and people love it. And all the jokes aside, like, at the heart of it, I still really just want to see people have a great platform in order to launch their careers off of. So I'm still enjoying doing it. So I've not got any plans. If they still want me, I would still like to do it, because I think you should continue to do something if you're enjoying it.
Absolutely. I need to go back to the point you made about being called chocolate Labrador.
Yeah.
Now that's obviously disgusting. Have you ever experienced that kind of racism before? And when you did...
Amanda Platel, that journalist, if you all want to attack her.
When you called out, did you obviously called out, that was called out?
Well, I tried to sue them, yeah, but they had all this legal jargon as to why it wasn't racist, and how the chocolate Labrador is the gentle one of the... Oh, just some bullshit, basically. And it really was just some excuse, but as I said, there's a fine line, and I felt genuinely attacked at the time by other women, which was really disappointing. And then I was thankful that I'm not like that, because I would never want to belittle or put down another woman. Never. Like, you should support one another. So to see older women doing that, it was just really disappointing.
And have you experienced any other racism like that in your career?
I think there's underlying racism, always. And I think I'd be a liar if I didn't sit here and say it doesn't exist, because it does exist. And I think that progress has been made, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done. I really hate hearing, oh, you're one of the only women of colour on mainstream TV. Like, it infuriates me. I don't want that. I want it to be normality to see lots of women of colour on TV. Oh yeah, but you're light skinned, that's why, you know, they've let you through. Yeah. I don't like that. Because for me, it's important. This is a multicultural society, and everyone growing up should be able to see someone on television that is representative of them. And I remember growing up and not having that. Yeah. Never having that, always having to look to the States. I mean, I grew up in quite a predominantly white area, but I'm very close with my family, so I've never really felt like I've missed out on my culture or anything like that. But I can honestly say that there are a lot of kids that I know that grew up and they were like, they didn't know what their identity was. Yeah. And that's quite sad. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like, yeah, we make progress, but then we go backwards in so many ways. And nobody would ever be out and out racist to me, but I know it exists. I mean, I have been told by journalists that certain magazines would not put a woman of colour on the front of their magazine because they don't think it will sell. Like, people have told me stuff. So, as I said, it's one of those things you're aware of, and it sucks, but all you can keep doing is trying to fight and try and prove that it is possible to be a woman of colour or man of colour and be successful in this industry. It's horrible to think that people would be put off to do something because of that, right? It's not fair.
Often, you do get this debate where you'll have a lighter skinned, especially in the females, lighter skinned female and a dark skinned female, and the darker skinned lady can often feel that she's maybe not accepted in the same way in the commercial industry. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I see it all the time. I see it all the time. One of the most refreshing moments I had was when I was asked to do the nerd video, She Wants to Move, and when the casting director saw me, she said, oh, I thought you were darker, because she chose me from a photograph of me when I just got back from Jamaica and I had a suntan, and I was darker and I was loving it. And I got to LA and she went, I thought you were darker, would you go and sunbathe? And I was like, with pleasure. And I said to her, how refreshing. How refreshing. I loved that though. You know,
did you head down to the beach?
Yeah, I had to go and like, I was like, come on, they need me darker. But I just loved that. Because I thought that's what I want to hear. Yeah. That's what I want to hear. Because, you know, and in terms of like the world of beauty, that's another frustrating side for me. It was like Avon Cosmetics, they asked me to get involved with them because they were coming up with this darker foundation, right? So they were like, oh yeah, we've got the biggest range of, you know, this shade to this shade. And I was like, yeah, but you're still not, your palette's still not wide enough, you know? So I worked with them and I tried to encourage them to push the boundaries more, because it works on the other spectrum as well, you know? It really does. Like, I mean, I've had conversations with women that feel like they're not represented, who are like too white or whatever it is, you know, like, I just think everyone has the right to feel represented in a fair way. And I in the beauty area in particular, I still think we're far, far away from where we should be, you know, and it's frustrating.
There was one report I read where you were the most hated woman in Britain.
I know, right?
How ridiculous. Because of the fact that they felt that there was an ageism thing that was going on with Marlene. Did you think it was anything to do with ageism at that time? And did you feel hated?
No, I didn't feel hated. That's when you've got to put things into perspective. Like, again, once you get to know the business and you get to know lazy journalists and you understand what sells newspapers quickly, you clock on and you just go, you know what, you're an arsehole. There was no need for that. Crack on, try and sell your newspaper, but it's not going to bring my soul down, you writing a headline like that. Because if I were to get upset by every negative thing that was ever written, then I would never leave my house. So you can't live your life by that. It is what it is. It wasn't pleasant, but it was manageable.
And what about the ageism?
Do you think it was? I mean, I was told that regardless of whether I accepted the job or not, that Arlene was being let go. And so I didn't feel guilty or responsible for her. I'm not in charge. I don't make the decisions there. So I don't know. I don't know if it was ageism. I can't.
Do you think it exists in the industry, within music and television?
Oh yeah. Oh, it completely exists. Once again, like, people will blatantly tell you that they won't play your record because they think you're too old for their demographic. Like, the ageism completely exists, yeah.
And so what's it like working on Britain's Got Talent? What is Simon really like? Because I know there's a lot of people who might want to know that.
He's cool, you know. He is. He's actually. I was a little bit wary of him at first. Wasn't sure how to take him. But once
Why?
I don't know, because you observe like the cow machine, and you watch like other people around him, and other people, the way they act around him, it's them. That's the issues with them, not him. Like he's alright.
How bad do they act? How does it get? How
Well, I
ridiculous?
just think like he'd come into the room like, and everyone would be really quiet. It's like he's human. Like you don't just relax. Like he's a human being. It's like, you know. Yeah. I think people just get carried away in the hype of things. Mm-hmm. You know, I respect him. I respect him as a businessman, and I like him as a person. He's actually got a big heart. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you know, cruel things have been written about him, but he takes it on the chin. Like he finds it all quite humorous. He just gets on with it. But I see the way he treats people, and he's good to people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he loves animals, and that tells me he's a good person.
Would you have ever gone on a show like Britain's Got Talent?
No.
Starting out, why not?
No, I wouldn't have. Why? I would have probably been too scared for a start. And as I said, one thing I would never change is the way that it did happen for Mystique, which was I wouldn't change that for the world, because it felt very organic and very authentic and very real. So I wouldn't change it. But I totally understand why people would go on a show like BGT. If you do get it right, you know, you can go on and have a great career. You know, it's a great platform if you use that platform wisely.
Right, you did a documentary, Don't Hit My Mum.
Yeah.
And you later did one on absent fathers.
Yeah.
Why did you choose those two very obviously important issues to talk about? Because I know that you already admitted that you'd seen domestic violence in your personal life growing up. But why at that point? Because you'd been very private about it for a long time, hadn't you?
I was at a place where I really needed to do something away from the glitz and all singing, all dancing stuff, and do something a bit more real. Like there's always that niggle in my head. I'm always like, you need to try and do things that are going to be productive and helpful for other people. And I was approached by a production company to do a show. I think it was actually on skin bleaching, which I still think is a really good idea. Because I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed. But I took the idea to BBC One about Don't Hit My Mum. Obviously, I saw domestic violence in the house growing up. My mum is in a great place in her life now and has overcome it. And I felt like with me having the platform that I have, and with the experience that we had as a family, that hopefully we could help other people. And actually the inspiration behind it were children, which basically children are the victim that often gets forgotten. You know, the people that witness domestic violence that are there. And I did it in conjunction with children in need. And so it was really about sort of trying to help kids have a voice, to feel like they don't need to suffer in silence, and just really for women to feel confident to come forward, because there's so many women that are too afraid to say anything for obvious reasons. So it was a hard-hitting subject. I was pleased that the BBC commissioned it. I was a little sad at the end of it, because I felt like it wasn't enough. It never is. And it's one of those continuous things that we still need to keep talking about and doing more for. It's quite taboo still. I think a lot of people need to feel more confident in speaking out about it and not be ashamed to speak out about it.
Were you nervous about putting yourself out there like that at that
massively.
point? Because you were very vulnerable. Well, you showed a vulnerable side anyway in the filming.
Yeah, because sitting there talking about my mum was very difficult. But I think my mum gave me her blessing, because she knew that hopefully it would help other people. And I think the most important thing, we've moved on. Yeah. You know, I carried the scars from that for many, many years. I was a very angry teenager. I had a lot of frustration, and I guess that's why I threw myself into sport, and I threw myself into performing, because it was my way of venting. So I was very angry, but I've managed to lose that now. I've managed to forgive, I've managed to move on, but there are millions and millions of people in that current situation as we speak. Yeah. Like for me, growing up, it was do what you want. And
how bad did it get in your do what you want days?
Nothing like, I mean, I wish there weren't cameras here. I'd be so much more honest. I said that to her when she called me. I said, how honest can I be? Like, who's in the room? Are we being filmed? I was like, if you want me to tell them everything, then don't have any cameras in it. No, like, generally, I'm a bit of a rebel. I have had, like, days where I've done things I probably shouldn't have, and I've learned the hard way a lot. But essentially, at the heart of it, like, I'm a good girl. Like, I'm a person that has always wanted to have a better life than what I had growing up. Like, I've always wanted to change the rules for myself. Like, I wouldn't want my little girl to grow up in the way that I grew up. Even though I had love, like, there was a lot of stuff that went down, and but it's shaped me. It's made me the person that I am. You know, I can't change that now.
Well, I need to come on to fame, because you say that you're a good girl, but you've done all these things that are probably maybe not as good as you would have liked to reveal here today. But what's funny is you don't have there's like no press or anything that comes out about you doing anything that's naughty or untoward, or it's been pretty positive, aside from the sort of Arlene time.
Right.
So how have you managed to do that? How have you managed to keep all your friends shtum about?
Well, because there isn't some big secret, you know. I'm just like a normal teenager getting up to no good, living life, you know, but always very focused. Like, that never lost me. Like, I've always been very driven, very ambitious. Even from a very young age, I've always had a focus. And I think that's what's kind of got me to where I am. Because I value my life. I value, you know, just life generally, and I want to make the most of it. It's a gift, right? So it shouldn't be taken for granted. And so that's why I will always put my best foot forward and always do the best that I can. But the most important thing to me, above any stats, facts and stuff, is just being a good person, like having a compassionate heart. That's really what drives me more than anything. Like, if I look in the mirror, it's not really about the success or the stats. It's about, do I like me? Am I, you know, like that's what I always try to keep in check, because I think as you get older, you realise like what's really important. Like, we're all trying to survive, and we're all trying to eat, but you know, how do we treat other people? Being kind, having a big heart. Then things are more important.
You launched Rose Quartz, your fragrance, last year, and you've also set up your own label.
Yes.
Record label.
Yes.
Why have you started to venture into other areas of business?
I wanted to set up my own label because I'm a control freak, and I wanted to do it all on my terms. And I've been in the industry 15 years, so I feel like I've had highs and lows. I've experienced a lot of different things. I've experienced major labels, independent labels. I know the business, I know the politics, I know the game, and I just want to do it on my terms. I went back in the studio to make a record that I love, first and foremost, and I didn't want any of the other things that come with that to kind of get in the way. So by putting my own team together and doing it my way, it's not an equal playing field out there for artists, you know, it's really not. So you've got to kind of rewrite the rules to suit you. I feel it's more of a challenge, but you know what, it's more rewarding. You know, I'm the underdog again, which I know sounds weird because people think, oh, you've got this platform and this profile, but I am the underdog. When you're doing it yourself and you don't have that machine behind you,
Have you felt it this time around?
The support has been amazing.
You've been everywhere.
The support has been amazing. Like, no beef, honestly. There are a lot of radio stations not playing my record, but then there are a lot of stations that have and are supporting it. So it's performing well at the moment, and we're pleased. Like, we're happy with the campaign. It was really more about reintroducing me back onto the music scene, giving people a taste of the album that's coming up. Gone are the days of caring about where it charts and all of that stuff. That's not what drives me. That's not what's important. I've called my album "Do It for Love," and I wrote a song called "Do It for Love," because that's my main drive. I feel like at this point now, I've got to have fun with it and not get bogged down with the politics. And the politics is we'd need a day.
Do you think that producers and television companies and just the media industry in general could be doing more to make people from diverse backgrounds feel more welcome on screen and behind the camera?
100%. I know there are actually people working within this corporation that are trying to change that. I've had conversations with people here. Like, for me, I'm impatient, so I would want to see change happen quickly, but I know some of these things take time. It's like, okay, so you're forming all these little things, and you're talking about making you're basically saying, we know that, you know, ITV or whatever is not diverse enough, so we want to change that, but let's see that change. Yeah. Like, let's act on it quicker. Let's not have the token black person. Let's make it so that when we watch television or entertainment, it's normal to see people from all different walks of life, that it's very multicultural, and that it actually reflects society. Yeah. And I think that change needs to happen immediately. And yeah, it happens in small ways. But as I said to you earlier, we're not there yet. I don't think we're there, because we're still having the conversation.